Hi there, join me for an early morning shoot in Whitby. Now, as you can tell from the video, it is still quite dark, but as you can see from the horizon there is a little bit of light starting to appear in the sky. Now, it is about half an hour before the sun rises properly, so hopefully when it does, there are some high clouds in the sky that might catch the light even better. So hopefully I'm going to get some good photographs, but I know that I'm going to really enjoy my photography. The really annoying thing about this morning is that I looked at the forecast on Tuesday night and it looked like today would be better than yesterday. So I stayed in bed yesterday morning. I did get up to just go to the loo very quickly at about 5:45. I looked outside and the conditions were much better than they are today. So I ran down to the beach very quickly and I did get a few shots. And so what I'll do, because I haven't processed those yet, I'll talk you through some of those using some voiceover. So these are my favourite shots that I took yesterday. The first is a capstan with the sun coming up behind. It would just come over the horizon, so it was lighting up the clouds. Now, to get the capstan so big in the frame, I put on my wide angle and got very, very close to the capstan. The second shot, I used a wide angle again because I wanted to include all of the East Pier and the East Lighthouse. Now, I think the cloud in the background is really interesting, especially the way that it's catching the light. The third shot, I decided to be a little bit more experimental and I did a shot pointing straight at the sun, but I liked the way that the sunlight was reflecting off the sea and just almost making a silhouette, but there was still enough detail in the lighthouse to make it an interesting shot. So what I've just done is I've tried to take a picture here over the pier and I've put a neutral density grad on the front of the lens so it holds back the sky, but I've also put a full ND6 on the front just to slow the shutter speed down to a 1/15 of a second to try and smooth out the water as well. This morning I'm going to have to be a lot more creative because the light is not going to be great. I don't think it's going to poke through that bank of cloud there on the horizon. There is just getting little bits of light in the clouds above me, so you never know what will happen when the sun does rise in about 15 minutes. But I'm going to have to be in the right location. At the moment, looking out over the piers, the sand is quite wet. And I did meet somebody yesterday called Dave who got a great shot from this location because the sky lit up at just the right moment, but this was just as I was walking down from the bed and breakfast, so I missed that opportunity. But he got all of the colours in the sky and they were reflected in the sand. So that was not being in the right place at the right time, and that is always the case in photography. If you don't get out, you're definitely not going to get the shot. So we are starting to get some really good colour in the sky at the moment, so I'm going to have to leave filming for about 15 minutes while it all kicks off because I'm going to be running around trying to find the right location, choose the right settings. So join me again in about 15 minutes and I'll tell you what I've got. My mad 15 minutes is over. You can still tell there's a little bit of colour in the sky, but all the real spectacular quality is gone. It's just a bit of a glow now over the horizon, but I did manage to get some really nice shots. I was dashing around trying to find the best location, which is really not ideal. It would be much better if I'd got more time to stay in one location and just really focus on getting the best shot there. But because I'm only here for one day, I've got to try and get different ideas. And as I took one shot, I thought, ooh, that would look good over there. So I moved to a different location. But I think the best shot that I got was from here, and the sun just came up and I positioned the sun just between these legs here of this lighthouse on the end of the pier. And because I put my wide angle lens on, I got a lot of the pier sweeping round and some really great colour in the sky. So I think that is going to be my favourite shot that I got this morning. But I did also try a panorama as well that I'll stitch together, and I'll show you that, and if there's anything to say, I'll do a little bit of voiceover to tell you about it. Here is a panorama that I took of the East Pier running around to the lighthouses. Now, if you are interested in the technique for taking a panorama, I have made a whole video about this, so we'll put a link for that down below in the description. So, all of the really spectacular light is now gone, but that doesn't mean that there's not really great photographs still to be had, because we're now in what is known as the golden hour, and this is probably one of the best times of day for taking photographs, because the sun has just come above the horizon, it's just poking through the clouds ever so slightly, so we might get a little bit of sunlight just cast onto certain objects, but for about the next hour the sun will be very low, so it's not going to create very contrasty, harsh shadows. There's going to be quite a warm golden light, so I can still look around for images to take and places where the sun might be catching it. It's not going to be dead spectacular because the sun is behind a bank of cloud, but it will just keep popping through every so often. So let's look around for some other images. So I've just taken a shot of this scene here behind me, and to make it a little bit different, what I did was I put the big stopper on the front of the lens. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the big stopper, this is a 10-stop neutral density filter, and if I hold it up to the camera, you won't be able to see anything through with your naked eye. So basically, if you set the exposure of the camera, you then have to add 10 more stops of exposure to get a shot that you can actually see. But what this does, especially if you've got water in the frame, is it will smooth it out to make it very, very flat. And also, if the clouds are moving, you'll start to pick up the movement in the clouds, so you can get quite a dramatic shot. So I'm looking forward to putting this in the computer and seeing what I can do with it. Whitby's pier extensions are really photogenic. As you can see behind me, this lighthouse that sits at the end of the pier extension is very symmetrical, and it's very dominant at the end of this sweeping boardwalk, and so it makes for a great photograph. And the lighting just at the moment is really soft and gentle, so that's a great opportunity for a photograph. And what I'll do next is I'll use the sweep of the boards to actually work as a leading line towards this lighthouse as well, and that's just as effective. Just for the sake of interest, what I've done is I've taken one shot of the lighthouse here with the big stopper on again, just to see if I can get some movement in the clouds, and then I've tried one without, so we can compare the two and see what difference it makes. So one thing that you can do to improve your shots is to take photographs from different heights. Now, to demonstrate that, what I've done is I've taken 3 shots from 3 different positions, high, medium and low, on this pier extension looking back towards the lighthouse. Now, the first shot was taken from eye level with the camera on top of the tripod with the legs fully extended. Now I didn't like this because it looked very ordinary. It made the horizon very high in the frame, but it brought the top railing very low in the frame, and it was because it's normal eye level, it's what we're used to seeing, so it wasn't particularly dramatic. So then what I did is I dropped the camera so it was level with this top railing, but that wasn't particularly effective either, because what it did is it brought the horizon level with this top railing, which wasn't particularly effective because you couldn't see where the sea ended and the sky started. So then what I did is I dropped the camera right down to this height, just here, very low. It's about ½ a meter high, but that made the whole thing much more dramatic because this top railing came down into the frame, the bottom railing came up into the frame, and the whole thing had much more drama and much more movement. And that's what you're trying to achieve when you're taking a photograph. Now, one little tip as well that I'll just give you: when you're taking pictures of seascapes, do try very hard to get the horizon level, because if it's slightly off, it just feels wrong because the water feels like it wants to run out of the picture. So try hard to get it right in camera. Now you can always correct that when you get it back in the computer, but it's better to get it right in the first place. So this is the kind of shot that we're thinking about when I was talking about using the boards on the pier extension as a leading line, because if you follow this line of boards around, you get first to the large lighthouse and then the smaller lighthouse over on the other side of the harbour, but you also see the Church of St Mary on the top of the cliff and the ruins of Whitby Abbey. There are lots of fishing boats going out this morning, so I have tried to get a few shots of those as they come past with the piers in the background. There are lots of these lovely little birds called turnstones all around Whitby, and they're quite attractive, and I've just got some coming very close to me on the pier. Now I've not really got the right lens for taking wildlife, but because they're very friendly and they came very close, I've managed to get a few shots of those. Whitby is a really lovely place to photograph. If you're anywhere near North Yorkshire, it's really worth paying Whitby a visit, especially staying over so you can get here for the spectacular light that we get in the morning. So that's it from my morning here in Whitby. We got some really spectacular light, and as it turns out, the sunrise did end up being better than yesterday's. I did manage to get some shots yesterday, which I will have shown you, but I think today was much more spectacular. I've also hopefully given you some tips for how to take pictures of seascapes and think of things in a slightly different way. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little photography trip with me around Whitby, and maybe picked up a few techniques if you're taking seascapes. If you have, do let me know down below in the comments, or nip over to my Instagram account, that's @DaveOakton_photography. Leave me your comments there, and you can also see lots of my pictures. Now, if you do like what I do on the channel and would like to help support me to make future content like this, you can also go over to my Teespring store. There I've got a range of merchandise on offer, and there's a link for that down below in the description, so go and check that out. But you don't have to spend any money at all to support the channel. You can do that simply by clicking like, subscribe and the bell notifications, because that really helps me out and it makes sure that you don't miss out on any future content. Watch out for next week's video, that goes live on Sunday. Or in the meantime, go and check out this video up here. But all that's left now is to say, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.